Jude Bellingham's father just detonated Thomas Tuchel on live television, accusing the England manager of gambling his son's World Cup availability in a scathing primetime interview that blindsided the FA. This wasn't some private family concern aired behind closed doors. This wasn't a diplomatic disagreement handled internally. This wasn't a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over. This is serious. Nothing like this has ever been seen 5 days before a World Cup squad flies out. And there's a detail the FA still hasn't confirmed publicly. According to sources close to the situation, Tuchel's assistant sent Mark Bellingham a message just hours before the interview aired, completely unaware of what was about to drop. And the worst still hasn't come out. Over the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly what happened and why this turns England's World Cup upside down. When a player's father publicly calls out the national team manager days before the biggest tournament on earth, it's not just awkward. This is bigger than anyone expected. You're talking about Jude Bellingham, England's midfield heartbeat, Real Madrid star. The player Thomas Tuchel cannot afford to lose for the opener against the United States on June 11th. And behind the scenes, it's worse than it looks. Here's what happened. Wednesday evening, peak viewing hours, a UK sports broadcaster sits down with Mark Bellingham in a London studio. The topic: Jude's yellow card in the final qualifier against Poland. Sources present during the taping say Mark leaned forward when the host asked about that match, and his tone sharpened immediately. According to reports circulating, he told the interviewer that any manager worth his salt would have protected a player in that situation. That's when everything changed. Mark reportedly described how Thomas Tuchel dismissed post-match concerns as just part of the game. And cameras caught his jaw tightening as he spoke. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. What's being said behind the scenes is that Mark added, if Jude had picked up a second yellow, we'd be having a very different conversation about accountability right now. The studio went quiet. The interviewer tried to soften it, but Mark Bellingham doubled down, stating that trust had been damaged. Within an hour, the clip was everywhere. Social media erupted. However, the real problem had started days earlier. Tension had reportedly been building since September, when Tuchel rotated Jude Bellingham heavily, despite his importance to Real Madrid's early season form. The Bellingham camp privately questioned whether Thomas Tuchel fully grasped the physical load Jude was carrying. There were also whispers of tactical disagreements, with Jude preferring a deeper midfield role, but Tuchel deploying him higher up the pitch. Then came the Poland match. Jude picked up a yellow card in the 38th minute for a frustrated challenge after a refereeing decision went against England, one booking away from a suspension that would rule him out of the World Cup opener. And Tuchel left him on for 80 minutes. Sources close to the family insist Mark felt blindsided when Jude wasn't substituted, forcing him to play cautiously for the entire second half. On one side, the Bellingham camp believes Tuchel gambled recklessly with Jude's availability for short-term results. England had already secured qualification, making the risk completely unnecessary. On the other, Tuchel's staff counters that elite players manage yellow card situations routinely, that Jude Bellingham is mature enough to handle it, and that wrapping players in cotton wool undermines tournament mentality. And in the middle, squad members who aren't taking public sides, but are absolutely weighing the atmosphere. And hold on, because the most controversial detail I've saved for the end. Inside the dressing room, opinions split quietly. Declan Rice, England's captain, reportedly avoided direct comment, but was overheard telling a teammate that families care, that's normal. Kobbie Mainoo, the young midfielder who would slot straight into the starting lineup if Jude were suspended, stayed completely silent. Coaching staff members privately expressed frustration that the controversy was aired publicly rather than handled internally. The FA issued a brief statement emphasizing squad unity without addressing the specifics. On social media, supporters divided sharply. Some accused Mark Bellingham of undermining team morale at the worst possible moment. Others praised him for holding Thomas Tuchel accountable when player welfare was at stake. The press framed it as a test of Tuchel's man management ahead of the tournament. Here's where things become even more complicated. Thomas Tuchel now faces heightened scrutiny over every selection decision in the opener against the United States. If Jude Bellingham underperforms or picks up another yellow early in the tournament, this controversy resurfaces immediately. The clock is ticking. England flies out in 5 days, and the FA must decide whether to mediate privately or let the situation play out. Now Thomas Tuchel is caught between two bad decisions. If he publicly defends his yellow card management, he risks further alienating the Bellingham family and appearing dismissive of legitimate concerns, potentially damaging squad morale. But if he concedes error or apologizes, he undermines his authority with the entire squad just days before the opener, and opens himself to second-guessing on every call throughout the tournament. And fresh reports suggest footage exists of a heated exchange between Tuchel and his staff immediately after the Poland match. Not yet public. This is the kind of rift that can derail a World Cup campaign before it even starts. And look, this is far from over. This is the information circulating so far. But over the next few hours, new details should trickle out, and they could turn this whole story upside down. So for you, was Mark Bellingham right to publicly call out Tuchel for risking his son's World Cup? Or did he cross the line and damage England's unity at the worst possible moment? Let us know in the comments below. And if you don't want to miss the next major development, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Because when this fully breaks, you'll want to be the first to know, not the last.